Welcome back to the Nebraskabilities podcast. I am your host, Andy, joined by my co-hosts, Zach and Nate, here to discuss Nebraska's first victory over Illinois in the past 3 attempts, I do believe, since we last beat Illinois at a cold, windy night in Champaign. That Nebraska pulls out the victory 20-7 in the first true road win under Matt Rule here, and the first of, I guess it should be the last of what this beautiful Big Ten West division will be going forward. And as much as it was a very ugly win, and it very much was, we don't apologize for wins, especially in the Big Ten West, that I will at least so belovedly and dearly miss close to my heart, because these are the types of Big Ten West games that you appreciate as a true sicko college football fan. These mistake-riddled drives, these low-scoring games that you're going to beat by just running the ball, and hopefully you're not the one on the losing end. But Nebraska did something that they have hardly done the past 4 or 5 years, especially under Scott Frost, was find a way to win these ugly games where you make mistakes, but your defense comes out and helps you on the other side. It's something that we had seen so many times before, is, Nebraska would take the lead and then we'd shoot ourselves in the foot, and then you end up losing these games that you should have won. Or, you're driving and then a drive ends on a fumble, interception, missed field goal, so on and so forth. And Nebraska had certainly plenty of those drives, especially in the second half. That second half was not as pretty compared to the first half as what we saw from the offense, at least from their style of play. But Nebraska didn't give up, didn't let their mistakes, their missed field goals, their fumbles, their interceptions come back and lose them the game, because they certainly kept giving Illinois chances to come back and win this game for sure. But yeah, Nebraska found a way to win an ugly game, and that's what we had been saying all along ever since Nebraska joined the Big Ten, is you have to find a way to win these ugly, low-scoring, close games. And you don't apologize. You don't apologize for winning ugly. You don't apologize for making the mistakes. At the end of the day, the score is what it is, and that's what matters going forward. And I think it's a very first important step that Coach Rule and his staff need to get this culture and the team's mentality back on track from the past 4 to 5 years. Is they have never been able to pull out these types of games. They've never been able to win these close games. The score was still a 2-score game, but if you watched the most of that game, you were just always waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Illinois to break a big play, finally get within 1 score, and you're like, oh, I'm just a little bit more nervous now. But, all things aside, Nebraska, probably should have pulled away in the second half, considering how many of those drives ended, within their own 30-yard territory with a fumble, a missed field goal, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, Coach Rule gets his first true road win under the Big Ten. And like what I said, I'm going to miss this big, beautiful, disastrous division going forward. And hopefully in the future, the Big Ten finds a different way to incorporate that back in, because these are the types of games that, like I said, a true sicko college football fan loves going forward. But with that, pass to Nate for your first initial thoughts before we dive into the offense there.
Yeah, no, maybe we'll see how things shake out. Maybe they'll just make a sickos division for, us in Illinois, Iowa. Get some of those
Purdue, Northwestern
10-7 games, just keep rolling on. That'd be
throw Rutgers in. They're the sickos division. Just throw them in there.
But no, it's overall a win's a win. Like you said, we're not going to apologize for wins, especially A, in the Big Ten, and B, almost more importantly, in the Big Ten West right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, division's wide open. We're a game back of Wisconsin, Iowa, I believe.
And they played this weekend, I believe. So then we're going to kind of know the true front runner after this weekend of the Big Ten West.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, we're a little back, but everything's still within reach. We control our own destiny at this point. So
we're not even 5 minutes into it, and he's already declared that we're back.
I'm back in the sense of like behind Iowa and Wisconsin. Calm yourselves.
Sure.
Calm yourselves.
You're the one that said it.
Zach's
But-
face was just great.
But regardless, the door is still open for us. Like I said, we control our own destiny. This was a game that obviously you have to win. It's a beatable team. It's a game that we have typically lost in the past under different regimes, and so it wasn't pretty. It was definitely one of those grinded out, really sit out and hope that we come out with a win kind of victories, but we did, and I think everything really started on that first drive when Illinois was driving down the field and our defense got the goal line stop. Thank you, Bert, for running shotgun on 4th and goal.
Thank you for learning from what we did last week against Michigan.
It was really probably a confidence booster for the team, for the defense especially, and the defense really kept us in it. Our offense has a lot of things to clean up, a lot of things to learn still, but defense never really gave up, and that's what kept us in the game. That's what led us to a 20-7 victory against Illinois. And yeah, that's kind of my initial thoughts on what I saw. We'll dive more in depth, but I'll let Zach get his initial thoughts here on what he saw.
An ugly, ugly, ugly game. I know we've all said it.
It's a
and we might as well
beautiful game.
We all might as well just put the pin in it. That was by far. That was what you call a Big Ten game. And we played it. The weird thing, kind of like you said, Nate, where the defense got that goal line stop, like I think that was where the statement was made by the defense. Unfortunately, the offense's statement must have been something along the lines of 3 question marks, because they didn't seem to know what they were doing at all. That's not to say that they were terrible. I mean, they weren't good, but it once again shows that our offense just needs a lot of work. I think there's some good things, but the defense did its job. And in fact, I think one of the comments that was made after the game was over by Rule, he even said something like the defense, even when we turned the ball over, something that that the defense was fired up and ready to keep going and play. And so it's like, it's good, because previous teams under the Nebraska end would have folded at a certain point. At least in recent years, they would have. And once we saw things not going our way on the offense, the team could have just been like, we did all we could do, and they didn't do that. So I mean, they held their ground, and I don't know what, like the second quarter was like the most exciting quarter of the entire game, because of the it said onside kick, but I don't know if that's what you could even call it. But I was just like.
It was more of a squib.
Yeah, because you can't technically like get a turnover on a kickoff. It's you either recover the kickoff or you don't. So I think that's why it's like classified as an onside kick, even though it was, at the 30-yard line essentially.
Yeah, well, because then we scored right after that, right?
And so, nice.
It was just like and I think that was enough to keep the team playing with fire. But I mean, with that, we might as well just talk about the crap show that was the offense, because the weird thing is it was a crap show, but
it wasn't.
They got the job done. They got the job done in the end. So I mean, I really can't say too much, can I?
Right.
No. I'll pass it to you, Andy, to start us off.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece, I guess the biggest news that came out of that game was definitely now knowing the status of Marcus Washington for the rest of the season. He kind of the timeline there is Nebraska gets that goal line stop, second down from your own 2-yard line. He gets that big, 35-yard catch that puts Nebraska down near midfield. And you're like, all right, now the offense has some room to work with. Next play, he's just run blocking. If you look at the video, it kind of looks like the DB threw him down. But either way, his probably knee got caught, twisted, whatever. And, Coach Rule said earlier this week that, he's done for the season, tore his ACL. So that wide receiver room that we had question marks going into the season of who was even going to be there it's now more exemplified of who is going to come out of there now, because you have Billy Kemp and then hands up emoji. You have your tight end room, but out of the wide receiver room itself, you have Kemp, Bullock, and then
Malachi Coleman.
You're going to play Malachi Coleman, Jalen Lloyd. I think Ty Hahn he caught a pass, that weird like third down duck that Harbaugh threw, and you're like, is it going to come down? Is it going to get picked off? We might see him more. Like I don't know. And I think
we're going to have to at this point.
Yeah, this is kind of what the bye week is for as well. Is now that Rule, we know his status of he's done for the season. Now Rule and Garrett McGuire, they have to figure out that room together. Is who is going to step up and who is going to be a leader when you need them at such a young age in their football career here at Nebraska. And I don't know. I mean, it also goes back to the whole quarterback question of, are we going to see Sims again this season? Are we going to see Heinrich the rest of the way? I mean, the whole bye week question of what is going to happen with that and the wide receiver room. We won't obviously find out until the next game, but yeah, I guess it just gives Rule extra time to work out those kinks. But
do we know if ACLs can be healed over a bye week? Is that allowed?
Just a little bit of duct tape and glue, I think.
I mean,
usually pretty good.
I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but I feel like that would help us improve our chances if all those with like torn ACLs could just get that wrapped up.
You can just donate those, right? Just take mine and give it to somebody else.
I mean, I'll take it as long as they perform well after I give them my ACL. Otherwise, that's for nothing.
But yeah, that's we can obviously put that out further and talk about that in a little bit. But game wise, Nebraska fairly even on passing and rushing. 154 yards passing, 158 yards rushing. So you kind of saw both sides of when Nebraska needed to pass, when they needed to run. How much of a testament to that is Illinois is just bad, and they're not a good football team. They're bad. We just made it look easier for them to come back and win because of our mistakes, especially in the fourth quarter. But that first half, and especially that second quarter, I mean, Nebraska finally started getting some bounces right. I mean, you get that onside, quote unquote, onside muff kick that bounces the Nebraska way, which those never, ever do. The interception in the third quarter, I believe, by Tommy Hill, that the ball just kind of popped right into his hands. That's also another play where that ball probably would have been out of bounds or, went over somebody's head just because that's how the bounces work for Nebraska. So, it's just nice to see some of those bounces finally go Nebraska's way. But I mean, offensive wise, and Rule has preached that, Grant did fumble. He needs to get better at that. He needs to work on protecting that ball because you're not going to be playing on my team, his exact words, if you're going to keep fumbling the ball, and you're definitely not going to be playing in the NFL if you keep fumbling the ball. So again, running back situation, it is what it is. You have to stick with Grant. You just got to hope that he fixes those mistakes, because we even saw the backup, Emmett Johnson. He did fumble in the fourth quarter on Friday too. So it's that one, more, maybe a little more leeway excusable just because he's a younger guy, got really thrown into the situation. But this just a case of Rule asking these guys to step up when they need to step up. And I think it just goes back to the whole Nebraska's identity of they're going to have to be a quarterback running team at the moment, especially now with your wide receiver room as thin as it is. You don't know if Grant's going to keep fumbling the ball. It's like, how much more do you keep trusting him to put the ball in his pocket and not fumble and make those mistakes? And can you keep Heinrich healthy enough to keep running the quarterback, read option, draw, whatever you want to run? Or is this bye week a good time for Sims to get fully 100% back healthy? And if that is, do you think Rule puts him in that situation? All of these questions, I mean, we're just to keep debating it until we get back to the next game and see who gets trotted out there at quarterback, or if Rule says sometime next week that Sims might be playing Saturday. But I also go both ways, is I don't think you can bench Heinrich right now. I mean, he, fourth quarter, he did throw kind of a lollygag interception, probably shouldn't have been thrown. Was a little bit more careless in the fourth quarter, which again goes back to those 3 Nebraska drives within the 30-yard line, and we scored 3 points at all of that, one and a missed field goal at the same time. So yes, Nebraska's offense should have been better. Probably should have been a 35-7 game at a minimum, just because they were moving the ball in Illinois. It's just we couldn't get out of our own way with fumbling the ball, turning the ball over, and all of that. So again, I don't think Heinrich has done enough to say warrants benching him and putting Sims back in immediately. He definitely has earned that right to be trotted out there and just do what he does. But at the same time, is how much more predictable are you going to be as an offense before teams start picking up on that? Because knowing that Heinrich is not as good of a thrower as he is a runner, and knowing that our wide receiver room is as thin as it is, do they think we're going to keep passing the ball as much as we are anymore? All questions that, like I said, are going to be answered as we keep going forward, but just some things that I think we also can ponder and discuss of what do we do from here on the offensive side. But I'll pass that to Nate there.
Yeah, it's a lot of question marks going into the bye week, which, I mean, is good that we're going into the bye week and can hopefully eventually see some answers. But yeah, it's a lot of unknowns, a lot of people that are going to have to step up. I mean, Anthony Grant, like you mentioned, Rule has a lot of confidence in him. He said that he has the talent to be able to play in the NFL. It's just got to take care of the mistakes, and hopefully, I don't know, hopefully this is the game that really shows him that, yeah, he has the potential, but if he's going to keep playing, maybe he'll lose some time to Emmett Johnson, Joshua Fleeks, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how that looks, but hopefully something gets ingrained in him. I mean, we have to have a rushing game. Our passing game is unfortunately not the greatest, and that is what it is. I don't think Harburg has done enough to really, like you said, get benched. I'll go out and say it. He's not the greatest quarterback, but he's a great manager. He's a great game manager, and he knows how to, go in the game, bring fire to the team, and get the ball where it needs to go. And sometimes that's all you need. And at the end of the day, he's been winning games. Competition doesn't necessarily matter if you're getting the W's. You'd like to see Jeff Sims maybe against lesser teams than Colorado and stuff, but at this point, I don't know if there's enough to really make the change unless you need to. Like if Harburg is really struggling against, say, Northwestern, Purdue, whoever coming up, then maybe you give Sims that chance. I don't know, maybe keep the leash just a little tighter on Harburg. Just let him know that he's done well, but we can't go too far or slide too far down. But I don't know. It's up in the air because we'll see. He has Fedoni to throw to, and sure hands Billy Kemp, and like you said, after that guys got to step up. It's got to be that next man up mentality, and hopefully that's something we are seeing in practice, and hopefully that's something that they show out against Northwestern in a couple weeks here. It's a lot of unknowns, which isn't great kind of mid-season, especially like we had alluded to the past few episodes. Like these next few games really have to be kind of the must wins. Obviously Maryland, ending with Maryland, Wisconsin, Iowa, that's going to be your tougher stretch of the remaining games. And your theoretical beatable teams are coming up. So we got to tighten the bolts here and just find out what works. It doesn't have to be pretty like we saw. On Friday, it doesn't have to be a complete game by any means. It has to be, score some points, let the defense do their thing, keep us in the game. And that's, we'll see who steps up, I guess. That's kind of all I've got on the offensive side. Hope is what I'm hoping for. So. Pass it on to Zach.
I don't have much else really. I think kind of like you both alluded to is I think there's a lot of leeway that has to kind of be granted to the offense now because, outside of the offensive line is held up well enough. But when I'm talking like the skill positions that we have, the guys that were supposed to be leading the team skill position wise are no longer, they're on the team still, but they're broken. So
right.
Like, it's time for the young bucks to step up, but it's also like with Grant, Rule went on this kick here. I think it was yesterday in his press conference or Monday, whenever it was. And he said that if you want to play, just, paraphrasing obviously, but he said something along the lines of, if you want to play for me, you got to stop fumbling the ball. And so, the question is, well, okay, do you hold him accountable, and does Grant not play anymore, or does he not play until he can show he can stop fumbling it? But then you also have to beg the question, like, I think he's the clear running back number one right now. Like, yeah, you need to hold him accountable, but like, are the guys that were below him on the depth chart good enough to warrant, holding him accountable? Because at the end of the day, the other thing that Rule always says is he's going to go with the guys that give him the best chance to win. So do you take the risk of Anthony Grant fumbling the football? And also, I know he needs to hold on to the ball, but like, when you go back and watch that play, it was just a well done play by the defense too.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying, like, I'm not trying to come up with an excuse as to why he shouldn't have gotten, not got talked to about it, but it's like, sometimes the defense just does that. And I mean, like, you need to hold on to the ball better. Yes. But like, I don't know. While I still blame Grant for fumbling it, it's not like it was in the Minnesota game where that one, he should have had two hands on the ball going through and he didn't. And it, like, that one was different. Yeah, I agree with you guys about Harburg. Like, I don't understand. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I would not understand if we brought Sims out in for the next game, unless there's a clear point where, like, if Harburg can get us to where we feel comfortable on the offense, that might be a bold ask, but if we can get to where we feel comfortable, and like bring him back out slowly and start integrating him back, maybe, but like, yeah, Harburg has played well enough for sure that you can't bench him. I mean, you can, but I think you're going to have a lot of people upset with the decision. But at the end of the day, it's not up to us. It's up to Rule. So I still maintain what I said the last couple games about some of the questionable play calling. I don't know if it's, again, a symptom of trying to be the smartest guy in the room. And this game wasn't too bad for it, but there's just some kind of plays that we run sometimes. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. And it kind of goes back to what we've all talked to before, where it's like, we were running the ball, so let's run the ball for a bit, and then we get a first down, and then we get a first down, and it's like, well, let's throw a pass in there. And I mean, I'm not an offensive coordinator, obviously, but like, to me, you would think that at least that's how my brain works, is like, if you're gonna do something, go until the defense proves they can stop it, and then. But I don't know, maybe it's a whole keeping them honest thing too. But yeah, I don't really have much else with the offense. I think with how many injuries we have on the offense, I think it's going to be tough to rely on the offense for too much. I think they'll be okay. And like you guys said, we got some tight end sets that we could run. So I mean, really, I think our best receiver so far has been Fedoni. So absolutely. I mean, we've got, and Billy Kemp has started to come around a little bit. Like, I don't know if he's quite sure hands yet, but he's getting better. So he's played well. I think it's crazy that he's 5'9" and playing wide receiver, but hey, good for him. But yeah, now these guys are gonna have to all, like I said, step up. They're gonna all have to step up and really show that, they got recruited and that they're going to be worth. I'll be excited to see how, using this year though, how they build going into next year. I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah. I think, for Sims compared to Harbaugh, I think Sims is probably the better passer, just in terms of mechanics. Now, granted, I know the interceptions and everything that's just more playmaking decision, but at least if you're just breaking down to like mechanics of who's the better passer, I think Sims probably does beat Heinrich in that category. And we knew that with Heinrich too, as we knew he was more of a running quarterback even before he got the starts that he did, even going back to last year. But, I think unless you are confident that you can roll out Sims and he'll make the smart play decisions, and, again, now that we have a thin wide receiver room, I'm not sure how much it matters anymore, but I think that would be the only justifiable reason, would be if you wanted to get the passing game going more. And Heinrich can do it, but it's just, I don't know how many more play designs that are manageable for Heinrich to do. Just, we haven't really tossed the ball like more than 20, 30 yards, except for, the Marcus Washington catch. And then the other one was an interception that he threw. So it's just, are you able to game plan? Is Satterfield able to manage those plays and be able to kind of tailor those plays to Heinrich to make sure they're manageable throws, they're manageable plays that he can either roll out, bootleg, play action, do whatever you want, and be able to manage the game like that. I don't know how that's going to look going forward now that we have less wide receivers. And are you going to put your freshman wide receivers in those positions to go get lit up, get laid out? Like, they're obviously still learning the college game at the same time. So now to be thrown in the thrust of especially Big Ten play, it's just, I don't know how that's going to look either.
You asked the $64,000 question though: is or can Satterfield, design plays around that?
Right.
I hope so.
And it's just, I hope so too. I don't want to get into the situation to where teams are game planning just because they know we're just going to run the option or some sort of run with Heinrich, our running backs, and just be so predictable in that way where we can't, like, we aren't able to pass because we can't, or we just don't have plays like that. I mean, I know that's how it's going, and I know how the season's going right now because we have nothing else, but hopefully Satterfield, is able to create that mixture and be able to do that and just work on better throwing with Heinrich if you are going to stick with Heinrich, because you are obviously going to have to pass in the game. And are you able to sustain that? And is Heinrich able to consistently do that without making too many mistakes? And, obviously that's the reason why Sims got, benched in the first place. I know it's because of the high ankle injury or whatever he has, but he more than likely was going to get a lot more questions about it and get benched if he didn't after the Colorado game. So we'll see with that, but I think we can switch over to the defense, who another strong showing. Obviously, Illinois did not find much success running the ball at all. Nebraska bounces back again after getting steamrolled by Michigan, holds them to 21 rushing yards, gets their rushing defense back to top 10 in the country again. So good for them. But they, we had mentioned in the beginning, I think they were the tone center. They were the momentum, because that first drive for Illinois, you probably, at least I had the collective thought of, great, this is how they look the first drive. They're going to look like this all game. And just this how Illinois was so easily able just to move the ball down the field. Then they got in the red zone, and like I think you said, Zach, they keep Brett for going 4th and 1 out of the shotgun. We praise you for that. But Nebraska gets that goal line stand, and I think just from there, the momentum, the confidence of the defense and that whole side just switched to like, oh yeah, we can now stop them to do anything. Passing wise, again, Illinois had to, just because they were playing from behind most of the game. They passed for 289 yards, and we know now with this defense that's not their strong suit. Nebraska was able to limit it. I mean, they just got burnt on that one, their only touchdown play, just a one-on-one against Quentin Newsome. But outside of that, I mean, we knew Illinois, that Washington guy or whatever his last name was probably their best receiver. He didn't hurt us too bad. I mean, he didn't get over 100 yards, which is what I was hoping, because he was probably their biggest threat in the wide receiver game going into that game. But Nebraska proves that, just they didn't let the Michigan game affect them. They didn't come in thinking like, oh, any team can steamroll us now. Like, they proved that they can still be a top rushing defense in the country, and they still are. With that, got a couple sacks there. Turnovers were huge. Both, like I said, the fumble that landed right into Tommy Hill's arms, and then the other interception later in that game. We still technically lost the turnover battle. So it's kind of nice to win a game where you don't win the turnover battle. But I think the time of possession shows that, Nebraska clearly dominated the game over Illinois. But, just a lot of good defensive plays, I think. Just a nice bounce back game from the defense. Don't really have too much else to say outside of that. So I'll pass it to Nate there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It was the bounce back that we needed, a bounce back that I think everyone wanted to see, especially on that defensive side of the ball. Like, that first drive was a little like you said, got a little sketchy, and I'm glad that they were able to turn that into something positive. But it was an honest 9-day difference between what we saw against just the effort against Michigan and the effort that they played against Illinois. Everyone, was swarming the ball. Everyone was, trying to get their tackles wrapping up for the most part.
Yes, that was definitely an improvement over the past couple games. Where like even the Louisiana Tech game, they're like, all right, it's starting to slip, and then Michigan happens, and they're like, okay, they're really starting to slip. And yeah, I didn't see too many of that Friday, where we were missing tackles, letting them break long plays and everything. We were wrapping up. Especially when we had them in the backfield, and some of those, like, if you break it, they get back to the line of scrimmage or positive yards. But yeah, we were able to do a lot more tackle for losses, in the backfield stops and everything.
Yeah, and it was great to see it. They could have just as easily let things keep sliding, like you said, and that could have been a whole different ball game. But defense, they tightened the bolts. They settled in. They got back to what's making them great. That run defense is stout, and we're gonna give up the passing yards. It's like you said, it's not our strongest suit, and I mean Illinois at some point just kind of had to break out the passing game because they knew that the running game wasn't going to work. But I mean, as long as you limit the damage, it got to play in that sense. Got to play just kind of bend, don't break, and hope that you can. Yeah, just keep everything in front of you and not break the big play. So I was really, I was impressed with the defensive intensity, the defensive effort. Like you said, we didn't win the turnover battle, but I mean, we forced turnovers, and that is something that we haven't necessarily seen over the first few games. And it's encouraging to see the uptick in the turnovers. At least we're forcing them and getting into a position where we can make those plays. So that's good to see, and hopefully we keep that up. I don't have anything too bad to say about the defense. They kept us in the game, and we're at 3-3 because of them. So pass it on to Zach.
I'm in the same boat. I think for me I think you guys have said this already too, is that the tone was set immediately with that goal line stand. And I'll be honest, like when I saw that was happening, I was like, well, 9 times out of 10, generally speaking, you see those go in when they play against Nebraska, just because, not necessarily because our defense is horrible. It's just that 1 yard. It seems like we're still trying to, we've still been trying to gel. So
that was Nebraska's first red zone stop of the season. They had let opponents score either a touchdown or field goal every single time they got into the red zone. So that was their actual first stop of no points in the red zone this season, which was huge.
There you go. 9 times out of 10, I was right. So I don't know if that's the correct number, but basically it was every other time except this one. And that to me said two things, and you both have hit on this one too, is that the defense has bounced back. Like they had the confidence and the swagger at that point, and they said, we can stop them. And they did. And then they kept it up. And even after the touchdown, when they let the touchdown go, you could tell the defense was upset at themselves, but they weren't sitting there like moping like we might have seen before. And it's like, that's good.
Didn't come unraveled like we had seen against like Colorado. And
Yeah. And so, I think it's good that they have the defense, like we've said multiple times. The defense is going to have to be the side of the ball that wins us the game. Maybe not wins us, but keeps us in the game. And our offense is just going to have to be able to score somewhere, whether that's through field goals, touchdowns, whatever. But like the defense is going to have to be the one that makes sure that our offense gets a chance to even do it. And they did that with Illinois. So, I saw a defense that didn't want to give up and was playing with fire, and that they had bounced back. And then the second thing is that they are good enough to probably compete with everybody else that's on the schedule. Michigan aside, like we said, I don't want to say they're an anomaly, but we were nowhere close to being on the level of Michigan. And I mean, I think,
and then they boat raced Minnesota this past weekend too.
Exactly.
So
Minnesota
Michigan is just, they're really, really good.
Yeah. And I mean, Michigan's probably going to wind up in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just look They just look like, when I said David and Goliath against Michigan, they look like Goliath if David had lost. So,
Yeah.
so I mean, they are the real deal, at least compared to us for sure. But I mean, yeah, I don't really have anything much to touch on with the defense because they did their job. They looked good. They they held the team to 7 points, and I'm not saying that Illinois' barn burners or nothing, but 7 points is still an impressive feat, regardless of who's playing.
Yep.
Especially when you look back at our past games, like it's been more than 7, and so we held Illinois to 7. Like that was, I think that was the game that the team needed, though. Like this is just an overall team standpoint. I think now, like we had mentioned last week, is that this is where the confidence builds, because in previous years that would have been a game that we would have lost because at some point the team would have given up, and now we're like, oh, like we can stop them. We can win. Nebraska is famous at this point now for clenching defeat from the jaws of victory, but we didn't do that this time. I swore, I said it at least 3 times. I'm like, Nebraska's trying to lose this game. I thought
they gave Illinois way too many chances to stay in that game.
They did. And the thing is like I said that, but then I was like, but then they would come back and get a stop, or they would do something on offense and keep the ball moving. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I just need to stop being such a pessimistic fan. But regardless, I don't have anything too much else to add to the defense, though. We can hop over to special teams. There's a couple things we can talk about here.
Yes. I'll get the positive because I want to talk more about the kicking. At least positive. So yeah, we did get the, again, quote unquote onside, but one of those muff kickoffs, fumbles on kickoffs finally bounces the Nebraska way. Generally, by that time, if one of those happens, Nebraska's too late to get to the ball, or bounces to another Illinois defender, bounces right back to a Nebraska player, which is great. And then, Nebraska gets a block punt. And going back to that punt play, it almost, I can't really tell if it was a bad snap or if they were purposely trying to do a rollout kick and the punter just, he took too long to kick it or had to reroute because our guys got there so quickly to kick it. But, Nebraska gets a block kick as well. It sets them up. I think we got a field goal out of that. I think it was 17-0 at that point or close to that. But yeah, kickoffs. I think Tommy Hill had one return that got us back out of the end zone to like the 22-yard line or something. But I don't think there was much on kickoff or punt returns that were super impressive because I don't think they did anything. I think most of it were fair catches. But kicking wise, I think Rule has some decisions to make. Alvano's, perfect for extra points, but 3 of 7 on the year. His longest is 32 yards. He's missed everything else besides that. 0 for 3 from 40 plus this year. And only 2 for 3 from 30 to 39. But like I said, his longest has been 32. So anything beyond 32 yards, he has not made, or he's missed, or they haven't tried. But I think that is a question that Rule has to figure out this bye week is, do you keep rolling with Alvano knowing that unless he starts making some of those close to 40-yarders that like you're pretty much have to get within 35 yards to maybe guarantee that he's going to make one? Or do you try Jimmy Bleakroad, who we had last year? And again, wasn't super perfect, but at least he made some 40-yarders last year at the same time. And I think, Alvano's got the legs. I think the Colorado game, he missed like a 40 or 50-yarder. Just wasn't accurate. But, he has the leg for it. But, kicking, again, you have all the leg you want. But if you're not accurate, I mean, you're leaving points out there. And, again, some of this shouldn't have happened because Nebraska, again, had the ball within 35 yards of the end zone. It just couldn't do anything because we'd fumble or not execute. But I know one of those ended in a missed field goal. So I think that is something that Rule has to answer. And, you guys, I don't know what your thoughts about it, but I'm kind of indifferent because, if Nebraska's not going to be scoring very much on offense, and if you at least get within field goal range, I mean, you have to have a guaranteed kicker to make those field goals, or else you're leaving points out there that Nebraska right now probably can't afford to not have at the same time. But I don't know. I'll pass it to one of you two. How do you feel? about it.
Yeah, it's a shaky situation because I mean, kid's still a freshman. He's
Right.
obviously learning a lot, just getting adjusted to the college game. And you don't, I don't know. It's probably a tough line to toe because you don't want to take him out and just completely ruin his confidence and then try to out Bleak Road. And then maybe, I don't know, I'm sure Alvano beat out Bleak Road for some reason in practice. And I think, I don't know, we just have to trust that Rule knows what he's doing. But I agree that it's at least a discussion that should be had that, I don't know, maybe reevaluate where a kicking game is at. Because, yeah, if the longest he can hit is around 30, 35 yards, I don't know, maybe you try to out Bleak Road for the longer kicks or something. Because, like you said, if we're clearly not going to be, scoring a lot of points in barn burners, and we need all the points we can get. And
we'd love to be proven wrong on that. If suddenly the offense starts scoring 40 points a game, I'm here for it. Like,
I'll take back that take.
I'm here for it.
But yeah, I don't know. It's at least a conversation that probably should be had. Is who do you trust at certain ranges? And at some point, we need the points. Got to take the points. So I don't know if you have any other further takes on that, Zach. But
I mean, really, in my head, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't with Alvano. Because I agree. I think he's got the tools to get the ball where it needs to go. It just doesn't get there. It doesn't go through the uprights all the time. And he's great at extra points. I mean, that is fine. But when we need the field goals, we definitely need to make the field goals, and we just haven't seen that happen very consistently. But I think if you take him out, like you said, Nate, you're going to trash his confidence, and you don't want to do that. And then, have a potential where it's like, oh, we have a really, really good kicker, but we have a really good kicker, but he just can't make it. And then if we trash his confidence, the first thing he's going to want to do is transfer probably, or maybe he'll want to work to get better. I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be a kicker.
You're right, Zach. It is damned if you do, damned if you don't.
To me, kicking is so much of a mental game, because a lot of times, the game will ride the line for you. So, or you know what I mean? It'll whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else really beyond that, because outside of the field goal stuff, the rest of our special teams, like I've said throughout the whole season so far, has looked vastly improved. They've looked so much better. And I will say, I guess, just to, if I have to put a true opinion to it, I say you stick with Alvano.
Yeah.
And I guess the thing is because he's good at extra points, and he is at least able to make the ones within 35 yards or whatever it is. I think the long ones will come. And I also wonder, and I'm not saying this is the case, I have just kind of wondered this since, it seems like kicking issues. I've said this before in the past, just I think as we've been talking, like I remember years ago, like watching football, and like when a field goal, or like outside of like a 50-yard field goal, like anything that was like 40 yards and in 45, just always felt like it's automatic from the kickers. And so like, it's weird that now I feel like we're seeing a lot of kicking issues that are going on with teams, not just Nebraska, just with teams in general. So I wonder if also that it's something with like the holders, or something with like the way kicking is done now that's changed. And I'd wondered if like maybe our holder, whoever's holding the ball for Alvano, is doing something. Is it Bleak Road?
I think so.
Conspiracy. Yeah, it's usually either the backup kicker or the punter.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that's the case, but it is something that maybe it's not really Alvano, but you would also think that we would have heard something like that by now, or like even one of the TV replays would have picked it up and said, like, oh, like he was holding the ball wrong, because they have those where they zoom right in on the ball when they kick. So anyway, that's probably the most I think we've talked about special teams collectively this year.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, we were blessed with like Alex Henry, Brett Maher for a while.
That's true.
So long. Even Drew Brown was consistent enough.
I think that's what we're going for, though, is just consistency. And it's like, and I think Alvano is right there. Like he's almost to where consistency will come. It's just it hasn't hit yet. And I think he needs one of those to fall where it's like, I can make
It
it.
just needs to be nice where, like, if we trot our kicker out for, like, not even a 50, like 45 in, that, like, we can just sit back and, like, oh, not a problem. This is going in because he's made so many of these before. Like, if we just get back to that stage, I think, yeah, we're not having this discussion anymore. But it's just at the same time, knowing that your offense isn't scoring as much as we want them to, obviously, is you're going to have to start trusting your kicking game too. And even that's still a little shaky. So, yeah, like Nate said, you got to take the points when you get the points, especially in this bad division in Big Ten play. But,
the problem is it's kind of a tough task for us to get points right now.
I know. And that's, I think that is, comparing it to Iowa, but, Iowa's offense is trash, but we know their defense and special teams is so far good that is where they get the majority of the points. So that's why it helps to have all three phases of your game in sync and doing what they need to do. Is they can set you up to get points on the offense, or they can get you points at the same time. So I think with that, unless you guys have anything else to add, I don't know if you have any other hot football takes you want to throw out there. I know Nate and I are in tanking season for our NFL teams, so it was a fun 5 weeks of NFL, but I think it's all over now.
I think I'll take the worst best team over the best worst team right now. Feelings are vastly different from last year.
Hey, you guys can at least live in the fact that you aren't Patriots fans this year. I think the Patriots are.
They're coming back to reality of what all of us have lived like the past 20
exactly,
years.
And it's like, thank you, finally. Like, but granted, they're always those people. The people that are Pats fans are just going to be like, well, yeah, but 6 Super Bowls or 7 or whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, fine, I guess.
No, I'm thankful I'm an AFC team. Granted, that means playing the Chiefs twice a year, but I do not want to play the 49ers in any capacity right now. They make everything they do they make everything look so easy of what they do.
Turns out
so easy.
Christian McCaffrey might be pretty good at football.
Might be.
Well, and I know like last
His
year
fumble against Dallas was because he trucked somebody over and then he fumbled the ball. It wasn't because he had a handle issue. He literally trucked somebody over and then fumbled on top of him.
Yeah, it's because he felt bad.
So hold on though. Like, yes, they demolished the Cowboys, but are the Cowboys not as good as people thought either? And now, granted, of course, I'm biased saying as an Eagles fan. I get that, but like at
the division too.
yeah. I mean, direct rival right there. But it's like,
I mean, I think Dallas will still make to the playoffs, but they'll probably hobble their way there for sure.
Exactly. They're gonna be like, was that
not like last year to where like they were confidently in the playoffs? I think they're probably hobble their way there and get in within the last couple weeks.
And then Dak will do his thing where he can't
3 interceptions.
Game. I mean, that was the other thing that somebody said is that he is a good quarterback, and I won't deny that. He's a good quarterback, but he can't show up on the big games. And it's like, that's kind of true. He had Sunday Night Football kind of all, he was there to show himself, and he showed himself. That's for sure. He showed himself real well.
To be fair, though, they were playing the 49ers and not the Giants like they did earlier in the year. So, I mean, quality of opponent
the Giants are also. Yeah, they lost to the Cardinals, but the Cardinals seem like they're on the rise.
Who almost beat the Bengals, but again, the Bengals, I don't know yet. They won, but like they had a tough time doing it at the same time.
I will maintain that this was because I picked up Joe Burrow for fantasy. I was like, I think he'll have a good year this year. Clearly,
as a fellow Joe Burrow fantasy football owner, I've been thoroughly whelmed.
This last weekend, even though they lost, he's been like, it was okay this last weekend, but it's like, and I mean, no offense when I say this, Andy, but like 2 weeks ago, I should not have had to say the phrase, man, I should have started Russell Wilson over Joe Burrow. That sentence should never have left my mouth. I'm not saying Russell Wilson is awful.
Bears, so
I'm not going to sit here and say that like Russell Wilson is the worst quarterback ever, but holy cow. That like, anybody else that's a Joe Burrow owner has to be able, like Nate just said, like what are we doing here?
Yeah, separate. Here's an embrace debate. Who's the worst Jones? Is it Mac or Daniel?
Mac. Daniel Jones doesn't have a line to help him.
Yeah,
Mac has flashes where he looks okay, and then now granted, I guess you could argue that Mac Jones isn't working with much. He's like our Harvard, where it's like he doesn't really have a whole lot to work with because of bunch, but also like their offense is just plain Jane vanilla. Where at least with like the Giants,
they have weapons.
Yeah, they have options. They just don't have a line.
No,
so like as soon as Daniel Jones snaps the ball, he's literally getting tackled within.
Why do you think he runs for 70 yards a game? It's not because
exactly
of plays. It's because he has to get out of the pocket.
If Daniel Jones had a line, I don't think he'd necessarily be the greatest quarterback in the NFL, but I think he'd be a lot better.
Nate, how do you feel that your team gave Daniel Jones an extension from last year?
I feel
your team caused that.
I feel fantastic that we're going to cause the Giants suffering for the next 4 or 5 years at least. Oh.
Yep. Unless they do like the Eagles did with like Carson Wentz and just eat the money and trade him off. But I don't know the details.
Find someone to trade for Dan. Yeah.
I don't know. I think his market's bigger than Max.
And I know we were just talking before we got on that, at least in regards to Nate's team, that you can't drop your quarterback, can't trade your quarterback. You just got to live with Kirko.
At least it's Kirktober. Like things tend to look up.
You're gonna have Kirktober with JJ, so
yeah.
that might change that a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe Kirk will retire after his Pizza Ranch checks. I'll cash in. I know I made that joke already, but now it's recorded, so now others know that I said it.
Physical evidence of it now.
I don't even know if he still does Pizza Ranch commercials. I just remember them being the funniest things I've ever seen because I was like, this is spot on for what I feel like Kirk Cousins would do.
I think the thing is he's embraced his Coles culture instead of the chains that he had last year. That's the only like difference between the past 2 years, really. Because I think our offensive line went from like one of the worst last year to top 10 at least this year, and we're having worse returns, and it's just
the regression to the mean is real.
That's why we love football.
Regression to the mean is real.
Every year we're all so pumped and so excited. This
doesn't help to have the worst turnover margin in the NFL though either. So
correct.
That's going to lose you a couple games down the stretch.
Yeah, big oof.
It's just yeah, the 49ers are a juggernaut. Unless they play the Eagles, I don't know. Sorry, Zach, I don't know if anybody's stopping them right now.
They play the Vikings in 2 weeks.
The Eagles need to clean a lot up in order to, I think the Eagles could keep it close with the 49ers, but man, 49ers right now look unbeatable.
It's also very funny to watch every other team try to run the brotherly love. Push,
brotherly shove, yep.
Brotherly shove, and then absolutely fail. And then Philly just makes it look like we can get 10 yards out of this if we really wanted to.
Well, if you watch Eagles games, you'll hear it every time from the commentators. They're like, "Oh, did you guys know that Jalen Hurts can squat like 600 pounds?" It's like, yeah.
It's just, and God, watching other NFL, not just college teams, other NFL teams try to run that play and get stuffed. And then Philly's just like, no, it's just a walk in the park for us. Like this is nothing.
I will say the Vikings, they just run a regular QB sneak, and Kirk just dolphin dives for like 2 or 3 yards. It's an athletic masterpiece. You have to see it to believe it.
I don't think I've ever heard the words Kirk Cousins and athletic masterpiece in the same sentence and be serious about it.
Especially when you attribute that athletic masterpiece to a dolphin dive. He's just playing Call of Duty out there.
No, he's on the injury reserve, and I don't even know if he's going to play this year or not. Maybe that's why Kyler got hurt, knowing that the new Call of Duty's coming out this year, and he's like, we'll just stay on the IR for the rest of the year.
Well,
he's already deep in the beta. Like he's leveled up probably at least as far as he can go. Like,
what are the odds that they stick? Well, granted, the thought was that the Cardinals were going to tank and try to get Caleb Williams.
But the thing is, like, if you look
But
at the
they aren't
draft
doing
order,
that.
no, it's the Bears have the top 2 picks because they have Carolina's pick. And then I think it's Denver and then Minnesota just based on probably point differential right now. So like the Cardinals aren't even the top 4 picks.
Cardinals have been like a surprisingly decent team. They just
I don't know why. I don't know why I thought Josh Dobbs would be a good quarterback.
Yeah.
It's been crazy. You know, I was going to ask you guys, you know, for me, obviously, like, you know, I'm an Eagles fan. Andy, you're Broncos, and Nate's a Vikings fan. But like, as the season wears on, if it gets to a point where it's like, oh, I need a team to also cheer for, like a backup team. I was curious who you guys would pick. I'll go first because I like watching the Lions. I think the Lions finally are getting some love
and fun.
I like watching the Lions. I think they're fun, and I think they're going to be scary, kind of good this year.
That does not bode well for Nate's division.
Yeah, we'll see. There's still Lions at the end of the day. We'll see what happens.
I only lean towards the Bills just because I love Stephon Diggs, and watching him ball out is very much fun. Knowing at the same time that the Bills are also really good to get to the playoffs and then choke every time, which is like, that's fine. They at least get there.
Hey, one of these years, man. One of these years.
I would say the Lions, but it's hard to root for an in-division team. Like Dan Campbell's a good dude. I'm glad they've got him. And like, if anyone else in the division is going to win the division, I would prefer it to be the Lions over the other two. So I'll give them that.
What? You don't like Green Bay? No way.
That's okay. The Jordan Love experiment doesn't appear to be working out that way.
That's been a delight to watch. But I'd say my secondary team would probably be the Bengals. Joe Burrow's fun to watch. Zach Taylor and Cam Taylor-Britt is the Husker connections. Like,
who did have
Joe Burrow is usually fun to watch, Nate.
Yeah, usually. We'll blame it on his calf injury the first few weeks there. He looked better last week.
Yeah.
So hopefully
it's got to be that.
Fantasy
Right?
points.
It's got to be that.
Right. But yeah, that was us talking NFL. So if you came here for the NFL talk, you got it. Congrats.
I know we were talking beforehand. Like, there's a couple big games, but like this bye week for us was not nearly as eventful as last year's. Like last year, we had a long bye week talk.
Yep.
But we also had so much more going on because at that point we were essentially doing a coaching search.
There was a coaching search. I think that was the time that the USC and UCLA news dropped, which at the time was huge. And then the summer happened, and then everything went up in flames.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of this weekend, we got 2 fellow Big Ten teams going Oregon, Washington, top 10 matchup there. So
that's
the possible new Big Ten West.
That's gonna be so weird.
What was the other one that you said was going on? Was it USC and somebody?
Notre Dame.
USC Notre Dame, yeah.
That one should be good.
And then hopefully Miami can just pull out something else outrageous against North Carolina.
Hey Mario, remember it is illegal to kneel in the game, especially when you're ahead with like 25 seconds left. You probably should have done that.
And Georgia Tech didn't have any timeouts. That's like the most bizarre thing either. It's like you literally do not have to do anything else because they can't stop the clock.
You know those charts that they put like a probability, the percentage probability during games? It literally looked like Nebraska's entire year last year with that game.
Oh
like
it's
like Miami, Georgia Tech. It was just so funny to watch that.
I can't imagine like what radio show hosts like in Miami would be like talking about this week, like how fans in college would react. Like if that happened here, I can imagine like what, Twitter and everything would be like, because we know Scott Frost did some really stupid stuff.
I was going to say, is
that stupid? Though.
Is that the equivalent of the onside kick against Northwestern last year? Or is that
it's close. I think this one might jump that because it was like, they had the game in hand. It's not like, we were up 2 scores and we lost the game, not solely because of that play, but the momentum switched because of that. Like literally Miami, all they had to do was kneel and they win the game. That was like the most baffling, bizarre part is they didn't have to do anything.
And then, they didn't have to do anything. And
No,
then
they did not.
They decided they were playing their little brother on Madden and decided they were going to, try to run a play and try to score. Like, what?
God. Yeah, so I'm thankful that Nebraska, up until this point, has not done something that stupid. We've done stupid things to lose games.
Mode. We haven't gone full sickos mode.
No,
yet.
we've done stupid things to lose games, but like we literally have never had the game and one play in our hand and then to lose it like that.
So I'm looking at the stats for this game too, just like overall stats. Miami had 453 yards total, and Georgia Tech had 250.
Jeez.
I didn't realize this until I looked at it. Georgia Tech had 2 turnovers, which isn't good. Miami had 5. It's like, man, how'd you guys get anything done?
And yeah, I mean, obviously not looking at that game or watching the game, but I mean, I'm sure some of those turnovers probably happened on their side of the field. So Georgia Tech probably had smaller chunks to work with instead of trying to drive the field. But yeah, I'm just very thankful that wasn't Nebraska for once. And it was nice to see another team do it. That wasn't us.
Makes my heart happy to know that maybe the Nebraska curse is finally going away a little bit.
Don't say it out loud, Zach.
You haven't sacrificed Little Red yet.
I said maybe, and I said a little bit. So I'm erring with a side of caution. And you're right. It won't officially go away until we unleash all of the ghosts in Little Red's costume.
You just pop it. Yes. Just gotta bring in the midfield. Just stick a little needle and just pop. Just let them deflate.
Correct.
Yeah,
we have a new Herbie, anyways. What are they gonna do? There's no new Little Red. What are they gonna make him into?
I don't know, man.
A bigger one.
That new Herbie is nightmare fuel. Yeah, like his eyes just.
But credit to the athletic department, you'll just feed into the farmer thing.
It worked, except for it was funny because we're bringing back the original Herbie. Okay, great. That's what they came up with. He looks good. He looks good on the t-shirts. Like that version looks fine, but the actual mascot, a little iffy there, guys. Especially when you could probably ask. Especially when you could probably ask somebody from Nebraska to dress up in overalls and just go be the guy.
Right.
But what do I know?
Yeah. What would we know? You're right.
I'm not sitting in these board meetings
yet.
I don't plan to be.
You don't want to run. You don't want to be a regent one day.
No, thank you.
Be the regent for Wayne.
Nebraskabilities runs the University.
Sounds
of
like too much.
Lincoln.
Sounds like too much responsibility, and I don't be good with responsibility. It's a wonder I even get these episodes out every week on a set time.
And you do very well.
It's like when you guys are like, oh, you're gonna have to do that. Oh no.
One more thing to do.
Yeah, more responsibility. Who gave me that? Right. Well, I mean, it's been a while, but I feel like we need to go back and talk about an award.
Oh, God, I didn't even think about this.
But I'll be honest, okay, I feel like an easy one to go with for the Fire into the Sun Award. Maybe it's not easy. I was going to say Grant, just because of the fumble. It's like, come on, guy, you shouldn't have done that. You knew not to do that after the last time. But I don't know if I want to put him there.
I might just specify it and kind of incorporate just the backs in general with running and quarterbacks just for their turnovers in the fourth quarter. Things obviously that shouldn't happen. You have a chance to really put the game on all three of those and you fumble. So I would, just kind of collectively just the backs, just working. Hopefully they work on it this week of just taking care of the ball. But yeah, they had 2 to 3 chances to really put that game out of reach and, go up 2 or 3 more scores and you just fumble. So that's what
Nate sounded like he had a good one though. I'm curious to hear this.
Yeah, I think I was going to go not the player route. I was going to fire our first coach into the sun, Satterfield, I think.
Ooh.
Could use a little rocket fuel to light a fire under himself
to
figure some stuff out because there were some questionable play calls, and even I can't remember. It was sometime later in the game, but there was a time, I want to say it was in the fourth quarter, where I think it happened a couple times where Rule called a couple timeouts on offense to chew out Satterfield, and kind of seemed like there were maybe some questionable play calls that were going out. That Rule's like, no,
What are you doing?
let's reevaluate here. So I'll fire Satterfield. So yeah.
I'm gonna switch mine. Mine is very specific, but you're gonna love it.
Okay.
It's not even a player specifically.
Okay.
I want to fire Marcus Washington's ACL into the sun.
Yeah.
For tearing. Come on.
For tearing.
Come on. It's not even. I feel like it's not Washington's fault. He made a good play, and then it's just like, hey, the Nebraska football gods once again remind us that
next,
life can be taken away in a matter of seconds. It's like awesome, but to be truthful, I do like the Satterfield call.
Yeah,
I think that's
can get on board with that.
And I the only reason I like that one over the backs is because Satterfield might have led to some of these turnovers. So, all right, Satterfield it is.
Yeah,
all right.
I agree.
Enjoy your time up
Later,
on
buddy.
the sun, sir.
Elon might be up there too. I don't know.
Come on back when you're ready. And then we are also taking a bye week for trivia this week, but we can at least announce the winner for last week, which was once again our sole trivia guy this year, Chris. We got to go back and find the questions. It was, when was the last time Nebraska beat
a coach
Brett Bielema
coach
team, which was 2012.
Correct.
And Brett coached Wisconsin. Wisconsin returned the favor later that year in the championship game, and they smoked us 70-30, I think.
Yeah, but Team Magic had that really cool run.
Kenny Bell had that block.
Yeah.
That became later illegal, but it was still a cool block.
It was such a cool block. But
and then the rest of that game got really sad.
Didn't take long for it to get there either. It was a good quarter, I think.
I'll be honest. I don't miss the days of Wisconsin running backs being NFL prodigies running all over us.
Yep.
Well, I mean, they still have Braylon Allen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, we held them in check last year.
That's true. We did have a pretty good showing against Wisconsin, and they have a whole different coach now this year.
Yeah.
So, and Wisconsin, like we've said, I think looks beatable. They look better than us, but they do look beatable.
When they play Iowa this weekend, that'll be kind of, how do they stack up against probably the best defense on their schedule so far. So that'll be a good game to watch.
How they meet up with us.
Hell yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, there was something that I wanted to touch on. I forgot until now, was the defense. They had a graphic on TV that I thought was hilarious. It was like our three top backs had 25, 27, 40 yards, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just said Illinois 21. I was like, that is awesome. It was just, they had 4 or 5 Nebraska players stacked. And then it said Illinois with 21 rushing yards. I was like, this is hilarious. The entirety of the team only had 21 rushing yards. I'm like, that's funny.
Big bounce back game they had.
Big
bounce back.
Well, we have no game this weekend, so it's not like we can tell you when to check into the game.
Yeah, I think my prediction for this weekend is going to be Nebraska 90 by week nothing. So,
I'll also go Huskers by 90.
I don't know, man. Will Nebraska actually win this week, though?
Yeah.
In the past, I feel like even when we've had a bye week, we still find a way to lose. Hopefully under rule that changes.
If anybody knows some experienced college wide receivers that still have some eligibility that want to walk on and start playing real soon, I don't think Coach Rule would say no at this point.
As long as you're the guy that gives us the best chance to win, he'll play you.
Yeah, exactly. But I think with that, unless you two have any other thoughts, everybody, enjoy your bye week. Enjoy whatever you want to do with your bye week, whether that's being forced to go to pumpkin patches or watching football or doing whatever you do, or weddings.
It is October. Go Minnesota Twins.
Yes, and Nate is in the middle of a baseball playoff run right now. I, for one, checked out in June when the Red Sox were bad. It figured out that they were not going to beat anybody else in the East.
So then what about the other side, Phillies or Braves?
Anybody that's not the Dodgers. So I don't really care who comes out of that series. I mean, Philly, just because I think they'd be a better home crowd than Atlanta in the playoffs. But
that's right.
Grease up them light poles.
yes. But with that, we'll discuss as a group if we'll put out some sort of a quick preview for next week. We probably will, just to get everybody ready for the game in case any, I'm sure Coach Rule is going to talk next week, so we might have some interesting nuggets to talk about next week. But until then, we'll talk to you everybody next week. And as always, if it's a possibility, it's a Nebraskability.